Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbatcher.com, out here today to take a second look at my SCAR 20S in 6.5 Creedmoor. Just kind of an update on kind of some modifications as well as my experience so far. We'll go ahead and start with modifications. What have I done to this? Well, I feel like somewhere along the line there is or should be a telephone call and it would go like, hey FN, this is 2005 GWatt. Can we have all that pick rail back? Like why they put and continue to put so much pick rail on their guns, don't know. But I also don't need it in my life. One, don't use it. Two, it just tears everything up and there's better ways to attach things now. So I ended up actually reaching out to Parker Mountain Machine and they make some pretty sweet upgrades for the SCARs, like the whole family of SCARs, and they basically make M-lock rails. And so both the bottom as well as the sides, and if you have one of the smaller like SCAR 17s or SCAR 16, make them for all those too. Adds a ton of flexibility to the gun because now you can move past 2005, which is sweet. So now you have M-lock. And with that, it opens the door for all kinds of accessories that you would use that are made nowadays, because while they do make things to go on pick rail, usually it's stuff centered around like the 12 o'clock rail, and pretty much everything else has largely moved to M-lock, to include sweet bipod, this one right here by Magpul, which I will say it's pretty nice to have on here because this gun's heavy, and to be able to just drop down anywhere and actually have good supported stable shots, pretty sweet. And something else kind of clever, I have these guys on here. They're by Creature Grip Company. They're the original Creature Grip, I think is what they call them. Number of different colors. This is like a camouflage variant. And on this side, I have some black ones. And they're basically kind of a rubberized grip for M-lock sections. So if you don't have anything going in that M-lock section, by way of example, all these places, definitely makes it more comfortable and at the same time still lets air go through, so cool down barrels, stuff like that. And one of the coolest upgrades, because here's the thing, if you can shoot suppressed, why not shoot suppressed? So I ended up actually putting a cherry bomb on here because I like shooting suppressed, and I want to shoot with this guy right here, which is the Jumbo Shrimp by Q. It is their 6.5 can, super lightweight. Sounds really good on 6.5 also. But I've heard nothing but horror stories about basically people dealing with FN with respect to customer service. Shooting suppressed, it basically killing the gun, like beating itself to death. And even though it has a suppressed setting, and then them turning around and just telling people like, yeah, like go pound sand, like void the warranty. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this was a military contract gun. Pretty sure running suppressed was definitely part of the contract. But the aftermarket saves the day with FN by making essentially fixes for it. So right here is the SCARburator by MotoTech Engineering, I believe. And it's pretty cool, like toolless adjustment. Hold it close to the mic. Oh, it doesn't want to make noise right now. But you can basically click between settings, a little ball detent, and once you're in place, it does a good job, like stays put, and yeah, adjustable. I think there's a bunch of gas settings. I forget exactly how many, but it allows you to basically tune the gun. So first thing I did, once I finally got that installed, so I could shoot suppressed, was actually go out and get this thing tuned. And while I was there, went ahead and collected velocities with my Magnetospeed, and yeah, got some velocities for basically the two different ammos I was shooting. I have, I think this right here, which is their 140 grain full metal jacket boat tail by S&B. And then what shoots really well, in my experience in this gun, is the S&B 140 grain soft point. Definitely don't want to get shot with soft point anything. Well, I don't want to get shot with anything, but especially not a soft point. And that stuff seems to do really good out of this. Like typically hold like solid MOA. as long as you're doing your part. So yeah, ended up getting this thing chronographed and got it zeroed out there initially, then took it to the range and did some shooting. I will say, shooting this thing suppressed with a tuned gas system in 6.5 Creedmoor, it is a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. I will say something I ran into, even when it was unsuppressed before I like swapped the gas system and stuff, is something weird where it will not strip the second round in the magazine. So you'll load it, and when you fire that first round, it'll go back, will not grab the second round. And I don't know if it's the violence of the action, like somehow slamming the mag around in there. I don't know. I mean, again, we have proprietary mags. Thanks, FN. Glad we don't have SR25 mags, known quantity. But that happened. And I did actually get a bunch, and it's happened with a bunch of different ones, a bunch of these 20-round magazines, because it ships with one 10-round magazine. That's cute. But yeah, aside from that, I've definitely been having fun shooting this. I ended up actually taking it out to Rock Lake Rifle Range, amazing range over in Washington, across the border, and pretty cool. It goes out past like 1200, just steel all over the place, and yeah, shot it a bunch out there. Impact. After shooting this thing out there, this may come as a surprise to you, but it's a heavy gun. And the optic I had on it was one of the, I think it was one of the Arkin, and does a pretty good job, like not a bad reticle, but the optic itself is pretty heavy, and the thing's pretty beat up. Glass is kind of beat up at this point, and the mount on it is like a 3-gun mount, or sorry, PRS mount, where you're like, I want all the weight possible. And I don't. So I ended up actually swapping optic. I ended up getting this right here by Primary Arms. It's their new Apollo, or ACSS Apollo. This one, ironically, is a 308 6.5 Grendel reticle. They do make one for 6.5 Creedmoor. But yeah, I ended up getting this guy. It's their new 3-18, and it's pretty cool. There's some pretty neat features in it. This being the Gen 2 SLx 3-18 first focal plane by Primary Arms, has some kind of cool upgrades. Kind of upgraded glass, better clarity. They also did some stuff with the illumination, so the illumination's a little better. And yeah, other cool stuff too, like you can actually swap out this turret cap, I guess, right now. It's capped for the windage. If you want, you can actually switch it to it being exposed if you're gonna dial for wind. And of course, some different reticles, and yeah, I've actually been enjoying this. Definitely saved some weight too on a heavy gun. I ended up actually, to get this thing all set up, went over to East County Guns, got a worn mount that basically sits at the right height, appropriate for this gun, and headed back out to the range. Once again, get this thing zeroed, which pretty painless. Went through initially bore sighting it, or sorry, not bore sighting it, but making sure I was on paper at 50, made a couple adjustments, really easy, pushed it back to 100, a couple more rounds, and yeah, established my group. And then of course, float the turret, get that thing zeroed out, and at that point, good to go. I will say, I ran into some weird stuff shooting this with applied ballistics and my data, which is kind of odd. For whatever reason, the data it was giving me at arguably like closer ranges, like inside of 500, it was off, which was really weird. And it was with the other optic too. but once you kind of push past 550, like it trued itself out. I have no idea. I probably input something wrong. I don't know, but yeah, sample size of 1, weird. But yeah, this thing is fun to shoot. And with the new optic on there, I'm like, let's go shoot this thing more. So headed back out to Rock Lake to do some more shooting.
Left ear. That was bottom of the target there, that was better. Left ear. That was bottom of the target there, that was better. Left shoulder. Off the left shoulder. Impact center.
This thing was a blast to shoot out there. Stretched it out to, I think, around 1100. It's probably the furthest I took it. And yeah, also pretty soft recoil between that upgraded gas system with that SCARburator and the can and 6.5. Nice being able to spot trace, spot impacts, basically make corrections, and the optic definitely lends itself to that. Like pretty easy to just make corrections inside the optic. I then was like, well, let's do some little 1 reload 1, because I'm gonna probably shoot this thing in a competition before long. Not necessarily like a lay down, shoot behind your gun competition. So I'm like, let's get after it. And to that end, I had actually set the sling up. Right here, this sling is by Tactical Distributors, lead Sling-Er. And then a couple of these Blue Force gear. They're the U-loops, I think. And then one of these Arcane Concepts bands, I think. Pretty sure that's what it's called. And so, yeah, basically with this thing, running a Spiritus rig, doing 1 reload 1 with a square, probably, I don't know, probably about 10-inch square at like 75 yards or so. It was challenging between both the optic and the weight.
2, 3.
This thing honestly gets heavy quick, and 3x magnification, like that's actually not bad at that distance, like kind of useful, but you have a first focal plane scope and not really designed around making shots at 3 power, like definitely more useful towards the top end. Again, first focal plane. I did kind of mess around with the illumination some. It did nothing for me. Like again, during the day on 3 power, it was actually more useful to just keep it black and like etched. In part, it had to do with contrast to the target I was shooting, but yeah, sample size of 1. With all of that said, what are kind of my thoughts on this setup so far? Honestly, I like it. Like, it's fun. I mean, part of it is like, I enjoy shooting guns, and this happens to be a gun, so I'm like, oh, cool, like, I enjoy this. There are little weird things, as I mentioned, randomly with magazines. That second round, like it won't strip it out of the magazine. Don't know what that's about. I mean, thing shoots well, like it's fun. Enjoying this optic on it too, which is actually pretty impressive. I think street price is like $500 or something like that, which is pretty crazy. Huge improvement with that SCARburator, being able to like shoot this thing suppressed without relying on whatever random gas setting that FN decided to put in there. And these, yeah, getting rid of pick rail with these Parker mounted machine M-lock sections, really nice. Also, something I haven't done but I can do now is basically have an M-lock arc adapter, so I can throw that on here, be able to shoot this thing off a tripod. Pretty sweet. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying the setup. Which brings us to what is next for this? Well, I actually have a competition coming up where I'm gonna shoot this. It's definitely not a this gun competition. It's more of like an AR, kind of like DMR recce rifle kind of competition. But why not shoot this sweet rifle since I have it? And speaking of this rifle, definitely special thanks, Shooting Surplus, actually sending this thing out. But yeah, after I spend more time in it, or spend more time with it, not in it, shooting in that competition, probably some more trips to the range, as well as actually trying to see what I can get out of this with respect to accuracy with something other than some S&B, probably some actual match ammo. Yeah, I'll end up bringing you guys a full review, but this is kind of a little update of, yeah, my experience so far and where I'm at. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Look all around you, there's a war that's going on. A struggle against the odds, breaking